Here we go again, folks. Ferrari is back at it, giving us just enough hope to shatter our fragile little hearts later. But hold on to your overpriced score merch, because this time, yes, this time, they might actually be cooking something that doesn't taste like disappointment. Ferrari wrapped up their pre-season testing in Bahrain with just the right amount of pace, drama, and impending heartbreak to keep us all on the edge of our seats. On the surface, things look almost suspiciously good. One lap speed that actually makes them look competitive, Hamilton sliding into the team like he's been there for a decade, and race simulations suggesting that, get this, the car might not devour its tires for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But wait, there's a catch. Because it wouldn't be Ferrari without at least one or two mysterious gremlins lurking in the shadows, ready to turn Maranello into a crime scene. First up, Hamilton is vibing with the SF25 in a way that should have made for a difficult transition. But nope, the 7-time champ is already throwing down lap times better than what Ferrari managed in actual races last year. The man is getting cozy, learning the quirks of the car, clicking with his engineers, and making Leclerc very, very nervous. Our Monegasque prince has already started nudging Ferrari to tweak the car to fit his style. Everything from brake balance adjustments to custom pedal placements, and at this rate, he's probably demanding an espresso machine installed in the cockpit. And then there's Leclerc himself, Ferrari's golden boy since 2019. A man who has endured years of mechanical failures, strategic disasters, and team radio messages that sound more like distress calls. Finally, after endless suffering, he has a car that might actually contend for a title. And what do? They bring in Lewis freaking Hamilton. That's like spending years climbing the corporate ladder, doing all the dirty work, only for your boss to hire a 7-time CEO of the year to help out. Of course, tension is inevitable, and that's before we even talk about the little teeny-tiny issue of tire degradation. Because while Ferrari spent most of testing strutting around like they had it all figured out, there was a lingering concern that just would not go away. Those cursed Pirellis still hate the SF25. On day 3 of testing, the car suddenly decided it wanted to devour its rear tires like a starving man at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Hamilton was supposed to complete a full race simulation, useful data. But instead, he had to box early because his tires wore out faster than Ferrari's 2022 title hopes. And if that wasn't weird enough, Ferrari started acting sus as hell about it. They threw up screens around the garage, left Hamilton twiddling his thumbs, and gave off major nothing to see here, folks energy. Classic Ferrari. Here's the thing, folks. You've got two ways to look at this whole situation. Option A. Ferrari is actually up to some shady business, which, let's be honest, would be a refreshing departure from their usual strategy of overhyping their car, only to faceplant into the tarmac by round 3. Maybe, just maybe, they've discovered something big and are keeping it locked away like a state secret until Australia. Or we've got option B. They have a real problem, but they're playing the nothing to see here, folks card because they don't want the world to smell the smoke just yet. And if it's option B? Oh boy, that's bad news. Because tire wear has been Ferrari's kryptonite for years. If they still haven't figured that out, Red Bull and McLaren are going to feast on them in race trim like a pack of hungry wolves. But enough about Ferrari's existential crisis. Let's talk about the real fight for the championship. Because while Ferrari has been hogging all the headlines, the real bogeyman lurking in the rearview mirror is McLaren. Yeah, Red Bull is still Red Bull, but let's be real. Max Verstappen is flying solo this year. He's got a fresh-faced teammate, and while the kid might be fast, he's not Sergio Perez level fast, which is saying something. That is going to hurt them in the constructors' fight. Meanwhile, McLaren has two absolute stone-cold assassins in Norris and Piastri. Lando, that dude is starving. He's been this close to a win so many times that at this point, he probably has nightmares about podiums. And Piastri, that kid's already a serial killer on track. No fear, no hesitation, no mercy. And worst of all for the competition, their car looks stupidly fast. The real question here is whether Ferrari can actually outdevelop McLaren over the season. And that's a big if. Oh, and let's not forget Mercedes, aka the team that spent the last 2 years wandering around like a lost tourist in downtown Tokyo. Suddenly, they've got a rocket ship and a prodigy in the form of Andrea Kimi Antonelli. The 18-year-old just stepped into his first F1 test and immediately started putting down lap times that made people sit up and go, wait, is this kid actually him? No fear, no hesitation, no L's on his record. Antonelli might just be the biggest problem that Hamilton and Verstappen never saw coming. So where does that leave us? Ferrari looks fast, but tire wear is still a massive red flag. Hamilton is settling in nicely, but Leclerc is not about to roll over and let him take control. McLaren is a serious championship threat. Mercedes might just have a future world champion in Antonelli. Red Bull is playing their usual psychological games. This is shaping up to be the most chaotic, drama-fueled season we've seen in years, and I am so here for it. We are standing on the edge of what could be the most explosive F1 season in recent history. But before we even get to the first race, let's take a second to appreciate just how many fires are already raging before we've even seen the lights go out in Australia. First up, Ferrari. Are they actually legit this time? Or are we about to witness yet another classic Scuderia meltdown, where they start the season hyped to the moon only to find themselves scrapping for P6 by round 5, staring at their laptops wondering where the hell it all went wrong? Everything looks great on paper. Hamilton is settling in, Leclerc is happy with the car, and the SF25 is putting up promising lap times. But there's still this weird lingering tension in the air that suggests they haven't quite put all the pieces together. And let's not forget, this is Ferrari we're talking about. A team that could turn a winning lottery ticket into a tax audit. Meanwhile, over at McLaren HQ, Norris and Piastri are sitting back, sharpening their metaphorical knives, watching this whole circus unfold with amusement. Because here's the thing, while everyone is obsessed with Ferrari, biting their nails over whether Leclerc and Hamilton are going to kill each other in Monaco, McLaren is quietly shaping up to be the real title favorite. Their car? Blisteringly fast. Their drivers? Sharper than a butcher's cleaver, aggressive as hell, and almost allergic to making mistakes. And unlike Red Bull, McLaren doesn't have just one guy doing all the work. They've got two fully operational assassins capable of racking up points every single weekend. In other words, McLaren is basically a nightmare factory for both Ferrari and Red Bull, and they know it. Now, let's talk about Mercedes. Last year, yeah, we all had a good laugh at their expense. They spent 2 seasons looking completely lost, fumbling around with a car concept that seemed like it had been designed by an intern who did it blindfolded for a dare. But suddenly, out of nowhere, they might have stumbled upon something big. And what's even scarier, they might have just found the next unstoppable force in Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Because this kid? He's not just fast. He's stupid fast. First ever F1 test, and he's immediately banging out lap times that made seasoned veterans sit up and recalculate their life choices. You know you're doing something special when Lewis Hamilton, a guy who spent the last 17 years making F1 look easy, starts side-eyeing you from across the paddock. And now, imagine this. Hamilton left Mercedes, probably thinking they were finished, only to turn around and watch an 18-year-old Italian absolutely cook in his old seat while the Silver Arrows start winning again. I mean, come on, that would be one hell of a plot twist. And then, of course, we have Red Bull. Normally, this is the part where I'd say something like, well, Red Bull is still the team to beat. Max is untouchable, blah, blah, blah. But this year, something just feels off. They're being too quiet. Verstappen is walking around like he knows something we don't. Christian Horner is choosing his words way too carefully. And every time someone asks them if they still have the fastest car, they come up with the most bullshit, non-committal answers possible. Which means one of two things. A. They're bluffing harder than a desperate poker player and are about to obliterate everyone like usual. Or B. They're actually worried this time. And honestly, they should be. For the first time in years, Red Bull doesn't have an ace as their second driver. Verstappen will keep doing Verstappen things, obviously, but there's no safety net for him this time. No dependable Sergio Perez to bail them out in the constructors' battle. So if McLaren and Ferrari really have closed the gap, and if Mercedes really has built a rocket ship, then we might actually be looking at a season where Verstappen isn't just cruising to victory every Sunday afternoon. He might actually be fighting for his life. And wouldn't that be something? Alright, let's take a step back and recap where the hell we are right now. Ferrari looks quick, but there are still some massive question marks hovering over them. McLaren is out for blood. Mercedes might be on the verge of a comeback tour thanks to a teenage prodigy. Red Bull is either bluffing their asses off or genuinely panicking. And, oh yeah, we haven't even started the first race yet. All I know is that this season is shaping up to be a complete and utter shitshow. Take a deep breath, folks, because we are not ready for what's about to go down. We walked into 2025 expecting another predictable Red Bull demolition job. Max strolling to his 4th consecutive title. Ferrari ANG their way into another tragic season. Mercedes still trying to figure out why their car drives like a goddamn wheelbarrow. And McLaren putting up a decent fight before inevitably falling short. But no. Pre-season has taken all of that and drop-kicked it into oblivion. Ferrari has done the unthinkable. They've built a car that actually looks fast, stable, and consistent. I know what you're thinking. It's Ferrari. They'll find a way to screw this up. And look, I get it. We've seen this movie before. Pre-season hype, promising lap times, and then, bam! Mid-season, they're out here executing race strategies that look like they were planned by a toddler having a full-blown meltdown in a supermarket aisle. But this time, something feels different. Hamilton is grinning like he just found out he's getting free upgrades for life on his private jet. Leclerc looks like he's spent the last 3 months locked inside a Rocky-style training montage. And the SF25? That thing is pumping out lap times that should have every other team breaking into a cold sweat. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Because the biggest threat to Ferrari? Ferrari itself. Sure, the car looks solid, but there's a ticking time bomb sitting right there in their own garage. Hamilton versus Leclerc. Right now, it's all smiles and buddy-buddy energy. But the second one of them starts getting preferential treatment over the other? Oh, it's war. Ferrari has one job. Get their shit together. They need to manage this situation perfectly, or they'll self-destruct before the summer break even begins. And if Ferrari is the great unknown, then McLaren is the silent assassin. Nobody's talking enough about them, and that's exactly how they like it. Their car? Ridiculously fast. Their driver lineup? Deadly. Their internal team dynamics? Unlike Ferrari, they're not on the verge of a civil war. Norris and Piastri aren't just teammates. They're a well-oiled killing machine. No egos clashing, no internal politics screwing things up. Just pure, focused destruction. And if you're Red Bull, that is your absolute worst nightmare. Because, for the first time in years, there's a team that might actually be able to take on Verstappen using nothing but raw performance. But the golden question is, can they actually do it? McLaren's biggest Achilles heel has always been consistency. They flash moments of absolute brilliance, lap times that make you think, holy shit, these guys have cracked the code. And then, the very next weekend, they disappear into midfield purgatory, leaving us all confused as hell. If they can finally kill that inconsistency, they're winning races. And if they're winning races, they're winning championships. 2 years ago, Mercedes was completely lost. This was a team that went from being an untouchable world champion steamroller to looking like they had forgotten how to build a fast car. It was embarrassing. It was tragic. It was, honestly, kind of funny. But now they've got something. And that something is Andrea Kimi Antonelli. This kid isn't just good. He's terrifying. Shows up to his first ever F1 test, hops into a car that was literally built for Hamilton and Russell, and immediately lays down lap times that make the whole paddock go, wait, is this guy already a top 5 driver? If Mercedes has actually fixed their car, Antonelli could be the unexpected X-factor that absolutely no one saw coming. And let's not forget George Russell. This dude has been waiting, patiently, playing the team game. But at some point, he's going to want to take the reins. If Antonelli is the future of Mercedes, and Russell wants to prove that he's still the guy, we could be looking at a massive power struggle brewing inside that team. But here's the real kicker. If Mercedes has built a car that can actually fight for wins, then, all of a sudden, they're not just clawing their way out of the midfield. They're a legit title threat. And then there's Red Bull. By now, they'd usually be loud as hell. Christian Horner would be on his 25th smug interview of the week. Max Verstappen would already be talking about winning every race. And Sergio Perez? He'd be nervously checking his contract just to make sure it still exists. But this year, something's off. They're too quiet, too careful, too reserved. And that means one of two things. They're bullshitting us completely, just playing it cool while secretly prepping an absolute monster of a car. And by the time we get to Australia, Verstappen will be lapping the field by lap 20. Or B. They actually have a problem. And here's why it might be option B. Because for the first time in years, Max doesn't have a real second driver backing him up. Red Bull's entire dominance has been built around Max securing easy wins while Perez racks up solid podiums. But if Lawson isn't up to the task, suddenly they lose that safety net. And if Ferrari and McLaren really have closed the gap, then Red Bull is about to be scrapping for every single victory. Which, let's be honest, is exactly what we want. We are looking at a four-way title fight. Ferrari has the car, the drivers, and the hype. But do they have the execution? McLaren has pure speed and perfect driver chemistry. But can they maintain their momentum? Mercedes might have a future legend in Antonelli. But is their car actually there yet? Red Bull is either playing 4D chess or genuinely in trouble. And we have no idea which one it is. All we do know is that 2025 is not going to be a normal year. If Ferrari finally delivers, if McLaren lives up to the hype, if Mercedes has actually found something, and if Red Bull finally has to fight for it, we might just be about to witness the greatest F1 season of the modern era. So, let's hear it. Who's taking the crown this year? Will Hamilton and Leclerc survive each other long enough to bring Ferrari back to glory? Is McLaren about to conquer the world and take their first title in over 15 years? Is Mercedes about to launch their revenge tour with Antonelli leading the charge? Or is Red Bull just messing with us, and Verstappen is about to enter Thanos mode again? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash that subscribe button if you're ready for an absolute bloodbath of an F1 season. And if you want to know why Red Bull might actually be in trouble, click on the video right now. Strap in. This season is about to be full-scale war.